Hello from wherever you are watching. Happy 2023 and welcome to Before 18, your number one program that focuses on people that are impacting the lives of children and children that are doing unique things in their own abilities. My name is Collins Orono, and today we have an interesting guest that is doing special things around children and trying to help children to be themselves and to be better people. Karibu sana, and I'm so happy to have you today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, perhaps maybe tell us about who you are and what you do, and probably what you do around children.
My name is Joe Mudikiza. I'm a health advocate and the face of sickle cell in the country. But I also work with children because I'm a parent.
Wow, you work with children because you're a parent. So you're automatically a parent, right?
Yeah.
So Joe, I know I reached out to you because I understand that you've done a number of things around children. First of all, let's start. Who is Joe? Is Joe just a parent, or there are other things that Joe is doing apart from being a parent, at home?
The most important thing is that I'm a parent. That is my first job.
Yeah.
I have 7 kids.
Wow.
One is biological, but the others are just kids that I'm helping from somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Joe, when you say 7 kids, and someone might be wondering, this guy is too young. But now, what is it like that? What is inspiring you to do this?
I just have a passion towards the lives of children. I just can't see a child suffering or a child lacking a place to stay, and I'm in a position to help, and then I overlook it. So sometimes when people refer me to certain kids who are bright, they have abilities and talent, so I decide to take them in, so I automatically become a parent. Of course, there are a lot of challenges when it comes to taking in a child who is not biologically yours or from your own family, because there is the aspect of the government wanting to know how you are staying with a child on what level. So there is a lot of things involved when it comes to taking in a child, because you can't just take someone's child and then stay with them without having like proper documentation. Yeah.
So Joe, perhaps I actually started, so far. I wanted to know, tell us a little bit about your background, where do you come from, and how has your journey been from schooling up to date?
Okay, my story is quite interesting. I have sickle cell disease, so growing up as a child was very challenging, because sickle cell is a very painful type of disease to live with, and it's life-threatening, and you have to live with it from when you are born up to the time you die. So I was born in Kakamega County, and then I schooled in Vihiga, and then also in Kakamega County, also in secondary school. I switched high schools because of my condition. So I happened to have a challenging kind of childhood, because a lot of people did not understand, the stigma behind such conditions. But I came out victorious without giving up. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So first, as a kid, having sickle cell, what does that mean? What did that mean to you?
I actually did not understand much about what was going on until when I was in high school. I really wanted to go to a boarding school, so my mom and the school nurse had to tell me that I have sickle cell, and from there my life changed completely, because I was in a different environment from home. where people do not understand me, teachers do not understand you, your fellow students do not understand you. So going to high school was a very challenging journey for me, because you find you're being stigmatized. A lot of people try to avoid you because they do not understand what you're going through. So it was very heartbreaking, but then I had to stay strong. After high school, I had to stay home for not so long because I wanted to do courses so that I can help myself. So I progressed to teaching first. I started teaching as an untrained teacher. And then I went to college, and after that, I decided I was going to teach. Up to now, I still teach, but though I do it once in a while.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm a teacher.
So now, moving now from childhood, like you're now an adult, how is that transition like now in terms of, first of all, have you been able to manage sickle cell in you? Or?
Yeah, I'm managing.
Yes.
I'm managing the condition because I have to live with it. So I have to accept myself and advocate for the same. So it's very painful because as an adult you experience a lot of challenges. Now you are an adult, so there are a lot of challenges when it comes to your daily routines. Like you need to work with sickle cell. You don't know when you'll be sick, so you just have to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like when you say you don't know when you'll be sick, perhaps maybe someone might be wondering, how does sickle cell condition happen?
Yeah. So sickle cell comes with something known as a crisis, and a sickle cell crisis is unpredictable. It's a very painful kind of crisis. It's like someone is ripping off your skin and inserting broken glass into your veins. And it comes gradually, turn after turn. It might last for a minute, an hour, even days. And it comes unexpectedly. It's something you don't expect. It's like just comes from nowhere and then it attacks. So when you are at work, you can never concentrate. You can never concentrate because sometimes it can even put you on ground. Yeah.
And so, do you still experience the stigma you used to experience as a child at this level?
Not as much, because I have come out to talk about it, so people understand what to expect from me.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, right. So now, let's now move a little bit from that as your condition, as a condition that has maybe you've lived with. Let's talk a little bit about how does this, to parents that maybe have kids that have such a condition, how should they, deal with it, or how should they tackle it?
It's just a matter of understanding and accepting that your child has a condition. Of course, there are some people who do not understand that sickle cell is a genetic condition. It means that both the parents, the father and the mother, have to take part in a child having sickle cell. So you find in some communities, it is blamed on the mothers. So you find that they are sent away because it's termed as a bad omen or a
so
curse.
It's that stigma.
Yeah, that is stigma. It still goes on up to today. It has never left.
So for you, your mom had to bear the brunt of?
No, she never had. My parents and my grandparents were educated.
Okay.
Were educated, so they understood what that was. But then I have seen from other people, from my friends, from the people we are with in the support groups.
Yeah.
I've seen them talking about them being single mothers because they have been sent away from their families because they gave birth to kids who have sickle cell, while it's a genetic disorder.
Well, so now for now, children, how do they manage now, perhaps being in class and now sickle cell? For example, at your time when you were a child, and now how maybe some of the children that you've worked with that have that condition?
It's not easy for kids. I understand it's not easy because some schools, when they notice or they realize that a child has such a condition, maybe the kid wants to go to a boarding high school, they will refer you or they will advise you to go to a day school, because most schools up to this point do not have facilities to facilitate people who have that condition. Like, they need different types of diets. Maybe the environment at school is a bit stressful. People with sickle cell cannot work with that, the fatigue and all that. Like, sometimes they just have to alter the school's timetable for one person. Yeah, so schools do not, maybe international schools and private schools, but public schools do not condone such.
So we can say our government has not been able to come up with any solutions to help people with those conditions.
No, no solution. Even the Ministry of Health does not know what they are dealing with at the end of the day.
So have you tried perhaps in your advocacy to advocate for such better conditions in schools for children?
Yes, I have done.
Yeah.
I even did a petition to Parliament with the Senator Isaac Mwaura to at least talk about sickle cell and then subsidize the medications, because they are very expensive. And also in whatever we were doing in the petition, we highlighted about the children who are going, because most of the people who have sickle cell are children maybe between the age of 1 to maybe 16. Why? Because most of them do not live to see adulthood. They die before they get to that age, because probably lack of medical care, people do not understand, and then there is not much awareness about it. And then Parliament has a lot of bills and petitions to pass through. So not only one petition will be important so that they can set aside, so they need time, a certain timeline to finish what was there so that they can come to whatever, but we move regardless.
So for what, when you say it's expensive, like maybe paint us a picture to us, like how expensive is medication for sickle cell? Okay,
for a person who has sickle cell, one person will need to use a number of medication on a daily basis. There is hydroxyurea. Right now hydroxyurea costs 70 shillings. There is Paludrin, an anti-malaria, it costs 50 shillings. And then there is folic acid, costs around 5 shillings per tablet. So you find that you need to spend around maybe 200 to 300, because there are other medications you'll need to take in, like painkillers and all that.
So that 200 or 300 is per day?
It's per day. So you find that there are people who cannot even afford to put food on the table, and then they need 300 per day. And then remember, there are hospital visits. You get admitted, and then sickle cell is not actually insured. So if you are paying with NHIF, you need to pay cash, because probably NHIF will just cover the bed, the place you slept, but medication you'll have to pay using your own money. Insurances do not cover sickle cell. Yeah.
So for you, once you're born with that condition, just know at some point life will be unbearable.
Yeah, quite unbearable, especially when maybe your parents get broke or you are broke, then you'll have a lot of issues. Yeah.
So how have you been able to manage, up to now? Because as you've just said, many people die up at the age of 16, up to 16, and
I had parents who understood the assignment. I can't call it an assignment. They understood what it was. So my dad and my mom used to take me to hospital most of the time. Something happens at school. When I was at school, if I get sick, they send me to hospital, or they call my dad and takes me to hospital. So they had to incur the bills until I was an adult. Even when I was still working, when I was still teaching my first few years, my dad was still paying my bills. So that was a little bit not hard for me because I had a support system that understood what it takes.
So as we finalize on that subject, what are some of the things that you feel like, there's some stigma that should be stopped around people,
sickle cell? People saying that it's a bad omen, it's a curse, or your parents have sacrificed you for money, because sometimes you need blood transfusions. So people say it's a cult. Some say it's devil worship. So because when you get into a crisis, it's painful that sometimes it gets to a point where it's unbearable. Someone ends up screaming or scratching themselves. So it's associated with a lot of dark powers, of which it's not. So people will have to avoid you because they will say probably it's a cult. You'll take them in, or you will induct them into whatever that is. So that is quite the biggest challenge people with sickle cell go through. Yeah, like it's just termed as a curse or a bad omen.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's take a short break. When we come back, we shall delve deeper into other discussions about his life. Apart from being living with a sickle cell condition, he has done so many things that are very impactful to the lives of children, and he has contributed immensely to make children smile. Keep tuned. Welcome back to Before 18. This is a program that focuses on children and people impacting the lives of children. And today we are hosting Mr. Joe Mudikiza. He's a parent and he is living with a condition, sickle cell. So today he has been sharing his experience, and we are back as he continues to give us more about himself and what he does. So Mr. Joe, when we started, you told me you do a number of things, and you're helping around 7 children. Perhaps tell us a little bit, maybe briefly, how do you, live with these children, and how do you help them? How has the journey been for you as Joe?
Yeah. So I wouldn't say I help them, but I just do what needs to be done, because I consider them as my children.
Yeah.
When you live with children who are not your blood, one thing is that you are taking in troubled kids to an extent, because maybe they have gone through childhood trauma, they have been abused. Some of them talk about their stories. They have been abused while they were still living where they were. So you understand that taking in such children, it means that you are taking them in with all their problems. So it means you actually need to understand. Sometimes some come with a bit of complications like adjustment. They have been outside the world. They have fending for themselves, and probably for the people they lived with. But once they come to live with you, they don't know what rules are or boundaries. So you need to start training them on how to behave like a normal child. Yeah.
So and maybe how do you get some of these children, like getting them to your home?
Most of the times I'm referred to them by probably their teachers, their principals, and I do not just take in any kid. I follow their history first, and I want to take in a child who I know is bright, because at the end of the day you'll need to pay school fees and other levies, because you just have to take in a child you understand is a child who maybe is bright and talented.
Yeah.
Because if you just take in any other kid, you might have a lot of problems.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just have to go through the legal process. It's very tedious. Sometimes they don't get you the legal guardianship on time, so you will have to you start having problem with maybe the extended family. Some of them do not actually want the kids, but once you take them in, they want the child back. And if you give the child back to them, then there are a lot of things that could be done, because some of them when they come, they complain how they have been mistreated, how they have been abused and all that. So they are just heartbreaking stories. So you need, when you take them in, counseling has to become your number one priority. Yeah.
And maybe perhaps do you mind sharing maybe a story of how you've one or two children that, the process that took you to have them, and the legal process, especially with government and all that?
So one specific case is there is one of the kids I took in, and he needed to travel, to go abroad. So you cannot do all the process without being a legal guardian. So you go to an office, they tell you need a legal documentation. So now you have to go to the children's department. Go to the children's department, they ask you a lot of questions there, and then you do not just file for guardianship without a lawyer. Now you need to get a lawyer, and then you pay them, and then they will file the motion for you. So when they file it for you, the motion for you, and then probably magistrate will listen to it sooner or later. They might accept or they might deny you guardianship. So they have to look on your financial capability, your criminal background. There are a lot of things they just have to confirm from you before they give you a child. But I don't think I have filed for a legal guardianship and then I got denied. It was never denied. Sometimes it delays, but then it comes through. But some people, they are denied legal guardianship, probably after they look into your background, they find maybe there is something you did in the past that might affect that child maybe negatively.
Yeah.
But for me, after I got legal guardianship of one, it's been easy to get legal guardianship of the other.
Out of the 7 children that you have, are they all boys or boys and girls?
They are boys. It's very difficult, entirely difficult to get guardianship over a girl if you are a man. It's easy for a lady to get guardianship over a girl child than it is easy. It's very hard for a man to get guardianship over a girl, especially when you're not related.
So what are some of the challenges that you face, especially now dealing with these children?
Yeah, as I told you earlier, sometimes the kids that come to you are troubled kids. You might think you are taking in a rose, but you find out later that it's thorned.
Yeah.
So you have to find a way to talk to them and just understand them. When they are on the wrong side, you talk to them as a parent. If it escalates to another place, because sometimes it does. They do not respect you because you are not the actual father. So they are like siezi muomba msamaha, something like that. I've had an incident with some of those kids in the house. One or two of them. The rest are really well, but one or two had some issues with discipline and all that. Then you find out that now that is a child who has not lived with both parents comfortably, probably being taken from one place to the other, they are actually trained to trust easily. So they are easily manipulated with other people. Like during this December holiday, I had them visit somewhere, and one of them almost found himself in a lot of trouble because I'm not able to provide like 100% of everything they need. Like sometimes they need phones and all that, and maybe I can afford 2 or 3. I can't give everybody. So one kid gets to a person, and then that person tells him, I'm going to give you a phone, I'm going to get you a scholarship. If you want to go to an international school, I will pay for you. And then a child hears that and then says, okay. And then there is always a catch. Yeah, so whatever happened wasn't really good. I had to go through to do some reports, because I found out later after they had come to the house. They start talking. You know, they were not alone. They were like all of them. So the other says, nani alienda akafanya hivi na hivi. So it's really hard dealing with such kids, especially when you can't provide like 100% of everything they need. You provide basic needs, but they need other things that they see with other people. So they end up doing things that are not right because they want to have those things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, as we finalize, perhaps now, what have you learned about dealing with children that are not yours, and how do you deal with them as now Joe? Do you sit them down and discuss with them, or do you perhaps discipline them, or you take them to someone else?
I have never used corporal punishment, like beating them or hitting them when punishing them, but sometimes I just quarrel and say things. Sometimes I overreact, but then I realize, and then we sit down and we talk. But there comes to certain times that I cannot handle it. That I have to involve maybe the mothers or maybe the church leaders. Like I have a pastor who has studied counseling and all that. So I call her and she talks to them, but they're kids. Sometimes they do things.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's interesting. So how do you what is your advice maybe to people? We might be having kids. Sometimes people don't understand these processes, and people see kids and they admire maybe to help them, but they don't know how to go about it. What is your advice?
First of all, before you help a child or you take in a child, you have to find out more about the child. Sometimes they might look very innocent on the face, but they can do wonders. You bring them to the house, you will have trouble. So some of them just run away from home and without being sent away because maybe they have been denied or they have been punished. But then you have to find out. The most important thing is finding out where that child is from. Where is he from? Then you get the story right, and then you go to the children's department, social services. Social services will direct you to what we'll do going forward. So there are a lot of things that needs to be done, because I think the children are the backbone of our society, and they should not just be neglected like that.
Yeah.
There should be something set up such that kids become the most important part of our society, not any other thing. That the ministry that deals with children should be funded to do this kind of checks. So maybe someone is sleeping on their job, I don't know.
Yeah, unfortunately, most of the funding, goes to health, education, and other things, and the child protection department is one of the least funded in terms of, and they're supposed to protect children.
You educate someone who is being abused.
Yeah.
How important is that?
Yeah, very unfortunate. So Joe, I want to give you an opportunity to say other comments around, give your final comments around sickle cell. Especially, what is your message to parents who have children living with sickle cell, as well as children living with sickle cell?
parents who have children living with sickle cell, I know it's really hard, stressful, and expensive, but sometimes you just have to take heart. Maybe the government, the Ministry of Health could be working on something that maybe they could subsidize and talk about sickle cell more than we do right now, because currently a lot of children are born with sickle cell, and it's very important when we talk about it. And to kids who have sickle cell, they just need to accept themselves, because acceptance is the first step to healing. Yeah.
Acceptance is the first step to healing, and if you have a sickle cell condition, just accept it and life will get better for you. And he has also said that, you know, children are the backbone of a society, and we all have a responsibility to ensure that, you know, we protect children and making sure that children are safe in our spaces. That is all for today. My name is Colin Sorono. Thank you so much for tuning in to Before 18 this week. See you again next week.